good afternoon. Thank you for coming. Today I am announcing a resolution, but not just a resolution, something that goes a little bit further. A resolution that is going to create the Office of Gun Violence and Prevention in the city of Buffalo, which I am hoping to become a local law. I've been working with the White House for over 2 years now, a little over 2 years. And I have been very close with them talking about the need for gun reform and gun legislation and services and resources and things for the east side of Buffalo. And last September, they started the Office of Gun Violence and Prevention, which is now a part of the administration of the White House. And they started that office because of what happened on 5/14. And they started that office because the people who are now running that office was here on the ground on 5/14. And they saw the chaos. And they saw what happened after, which was there were no resources. There was no one to call. Only person we could call was police and fire, right? And ambulances, right? There was no response to the trauma of 5/14 or to gun violence, period. And so that office was then created. And that office now functions as a FEMA response to gun violence. When there are mass shootings that happen in our country now, that office responds. They have people on the ground in those communities to help them navigate those spaces, whether it be resources for counseling or whatever it is. Whatever people need, they can get access to it. And our government has taken the lead on that. The city of Buffalo obviously played a major role in that office, but we have not stood up to that challenge ourselves, even though 5/14 happened here. And so I've taken it upon myself to make sure that the city of Buffalo follows in those footsteps. We have to protect our community, right? Not just from mass shootings. We have to protect our community from everyday shootings. This past weekend, 5 people were shot. The week before that, we lost a 3-year-old. 2 weeks before that, we lost a 14-year-old. On the July 4th holiday, I was alerted by my neighbors that someone was walking down my street with a gun. And the police came and they arrested somebody who had a gun on my street. So yes, we need the Office of Gun Violence and Prevention in the city of Buffalo. It is time. I am tired. I'm exhausted. I'm tired of hearing people talk about gun violence. I'm tired of it. Really, I really am just tired of it. You can't say it enough. Our community deserves better, and it has to start in government. We're elected to be the leaders, so we have to lead. And if we're not leading, we shouldn't be sitting in these seats. And so I'm just happy that I have partners behind me and with me on this. And so I am going to give all of them a moment to speak because everyone standing behind me works in these spaces. Everyone behind me has held a mother who has lost a child, right? And it's deeper than just losing someone, because when someone is shot, it's a ripple effect, right? Everyone is affected when someone is shot. And so these people standing behind me have their own stories to tell. I'm only giving them 1 minute to tell those stories, but I want them to just speak to you about the importance of this resolution and this local law. So I'll just let y'all roll in. Come on, Council President, you can start.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you, everyone, for being here this afternoon. While it's an honor for me to stand up here with my colleagues in government and partners throughout our community, I really wish we didn't have to be standing up here. We shouldn't have to be standing up here doing this. But unfortunately, we live in a community that is too frequently marred by gun violence, senseless gun violence, and something has to be done. As the Councilwoman mentioned, she's tired of hearing about this, tired of dealing with this, and I couldn't tell you how much I feel the same way. I'm just so sick and tired of hearing about it. I'm angry about the constant senseless gun violence we talk about. I want to thank and commend Councilwoman Everhart for taking the traumatic experience in her life and in the life of her son and using that as a catalyst for change, which is what she's doing. There's a saying that I have on my desk, and I heard somewhere along the way, and it's use the difficulty. So, take what's presented to you, regardless how difficult it might be or how quickly it comes up, and use that as catalyst for change, or pivot and do something a little differently, whatever you have to do. The councilwoman and I talked about this office during our budget negotiations. And I told her then, and I'll say it again today, that she has my 100% support in this endeavor. I'm willing to commit and do whatever I have to do to make it a reality. And just so she knows, and everyone else up here knows, all of our partners who are going to partner up on this throughout our community, that's not where it ends, establishing the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. That's when the work really starts. So let's get this thing up and running. Let's provide the resources that it needs to make a difference in this community. And I know with all of us up here working together on the government side, but also throughout our community and our tremendous partner organizations in our community, will absolutely make a difference. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Councilwoman Everhart, for spearheading this challenge. I represent a district that oftentimes suffers from a large proliferation of illegal weapons in the district that I represent. So there are times when I will get calls from my constituents when shots are fired, and then I go inside their house and I see shell casings, oftentimes because it could have been a simple dispute in a neighborhood that often leads to high-capacity weapons, leaving rounds of shell casings, people hurt, injured, or killed. And something has to get done. And the fact of the matter is that Councilwoman Everhart is stepping up to the plate. She's already made connections with Washington, and she's trying to leverage what she can to bring resources back home to change the city of Buffalo, to make sure that it's safer. We cannot live in a world or a city where it's a social norm for gun violence. It's absolutely disgusting and disturbing. And I'm glad to partner with her on every measure possible to bring resources back to the city of Buffalo to make sure our community is safer. Thank you.
So we have in our communities and communities like this across this country a gun-demic, and there are conditions that are contributing to the violence in here. So we are going to have violence. It is not going to be legislated away. It cannot be policed away. However, the conditions are really the magnitude of what needs to be done collectively from this country, right? Because it is a societal responsibility. We are losing too many lives. And so when something happens, when the 3-year-old Ramon got shot, it disrupted so much chaos within that family construct because nobody really knew what to do. And the organizations like my organization and other organizations that are on the front line with addressing this stuff, we don't have the resources to take care of some of the problems that erupt from somebody getting their life lost, or their loved one losing their life. We need an office dedicated to this, so we strongly support having this office located here in the city of Buffalo. Somebody has to lean into the magnificent number of problems that is created, because it's not just the loss that they're suffering with, it's how to deal with it after. Who's going to do the funeral? How are they going to have the money? Most of our young people that are getting shot, none of them have insurance. None of them. And so we have to have an office dedicated to resolving that problem, and we strongly support what's going on here today.
Good afternoon. I'm Pastor George Nicholas. I'm the CEO of the Buffalo Center for Health Equity, and I would like to echo the sentiments of those who came before us that we applaud the leadership of Council Member Everhart and the entire City Council. And we see here that this will be an opportunity for us to really have an agenda, a movement that will come across city, state, and county governmental lines so that we can address this epidemic of gun violence. You know, when we talk about gun violence, we at the Buffalo Center for Health Equity, we frame it in the context of a public health crisis. This is so important because it takes the onus of it only being seen as a criminal justice issue. But this is a public health issue because it costs about 50,000 lives every year in this country. People are dying of gun violence. And it's not just homicide. The presence of a gun will escalate domestic violence situations to a fatal place. A lot of women that are killed by guns in the midst of a domestic violence situation. It also makes suicide much more readily happening in our community. The presence of a gun will give people the opportunities when they attempt to take their lives, make it, we may want to call it, more successful. So we need to have a real strong public health policy and leadership that will address this epidemic of gun violence that is plaguing not only this city but this whole country. And so we are grateful to be partnering with Council Member Everhart and the Buffalo City Council and the White House, who are taking a very important leadership role in this. Thank you.
Many times we come here and we talk to the media, to our community about gun violence. Our role in this matter is to talk to our youth and tell them there's ways out of this. Right now, Summer Youth Program just started through the help of the Common Council, City of Buffalo, and so now we're in another phase of trying to educate our youth not to pick up a gun. It needs to be more organizations that's standing behind me now and more out there to talk to the youth, talk to the families, and put accountability on some of those parents out there that's allowing their children to carry guns. And let's go back to the TR Amendment, well, guns coming across from state lines into our community and affecting our community. We have to be tougher on gun laws, and that's how it's going to work. I thank the Common Council member from the Maston District for her effort that she's doing, but too many guns on our street. Kids can get a gun just as quick as going to the store to pick up a soda. We have to stop that in our community. So I think we could do that with this task force and what we have connections in DC that we can move forward. Thank you.
Gun violence doesn't have a socioeconomic background. It affects us all. And once we start to look at how impacting it is for not only our kids, the generations that are watching, to our elders, we are living in fear and we don't have the resources that we need to pour into the families to make sure that every child from primary education to the seniors needs are being met for counseling, for mental health, just to learn how to process and move forward in this situation. So when we really start to look at how it's impacting everybody, it's just not our community, it's all of our community, it's our city, and it's definitely our babies. And we're starting to lose our babies without an explanation. There is no explanation. So I honor Council Member Everhart for her efforts to make sure that this initiative is done in solidarity. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Minister Billy Webster. I'm the president of Mothers Against Violence. I'm also the leader of SET. SET is a street engagement team, which you guys will start to see starting this next week. Will be in the communities also. I thank Councilwoman Everhart because I've been standing beside her for some years, and she's always had it where before 514, she was about gun violence. And I'm a firm believer of all of us got to come together in order for this to stop. Not just a few of us on the front line. It takes everybody, every community in every county. It takes us all to come on one accord with each other. Also, me and my wife started that program because I lost a son. They murdered my son. He was a good kid. Also, her daughter was murdered. So we know firsthand how it feels to lose a loved one to gun violence. So for y'all out there, we need your help. We need all of us to come together as one unit, and get behind Councilwoman and get behind any other organizations that's out there in the front line doing this work. We need support. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm thankful that, like I was saying, Councilwoman Zeneta has stepped up to lead this. You know, we're speaking about the trauma. She spoke about the trauma of the mothers, but what about the traumas of the father? The fathers are having the same traumas. You know, hopefully that these funds go towards being able to address these traumas that we have in our communities. You know, some of these communities are continuously being traumatized weekly. So hoping that, you know, more organizations like Minister Webster spoke about do come out. People from the community come out to be a part of boots on the ground to reduce gun violence by mediating conflict, working with people who are at the highest risk of shooting somebody or being shot. You know, summer youth is starting. That'll keep the kids busy. The kids, they don't have, the biggest issue is they say they don't have a lot to do. So hopefully with the funding more things are created for them to do. Recreational centers, lighthouses, like things that we've had in the past. Hopefully they're brought back so the kids can have something to do and not just be on the streets. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm here to support my colleague in government and in life as we deal with and address a serious issue in our country and especially here in our city. It's without question that in order to make sure that our young people are here, that we have to address the issue of gun violence. And so, of course, I support Councilwoman Everhart in her efforts to create this office, or finding ways to address the issue as a woman my cousin was murdered by gun violence, just trying to take care of his family. He had just gotten a promotion. He just changed his entire life around, young kids at the time, and it was taken away on a random Saturday afternoon. That should never happen. A child's life should not be taken because another child didn't have access to the right resources. So I'm grateful to these organizations that are behind me now, and for the work that they do in our community and uplifting our community and making sure that we build arms around them. But it's not enough for us to just talk about what we need to do. It's also important that we put resources, time, energy, and importantly, policy, real policy that can change lives. Now, I'm clear that you can't legislate morality. If somebody wants to do something nefarious, we can't change that. But we can figure out ways to wrap ourselves around young people and in our community as a whole. And so these organizations that provide services that help with prevention through what's already happening in the administration, there's some spaces in community services and citizen services and others that are already providing it. Well, then we have some really great community partners who have lived through this. Some individuals who understand the repercussions after you've fired a weapon and taken somebody's life, and then your life is completely ruined. And they're trying to help young people, but they can't do it alone. And it's our job in government to help support those organizations, and that's why I'm here. And so until we address this, until we change that, we're not really making sure that there's a future for us. And my job is to make sure that we're listening to the people in our city and in our community. And I commend my colleague for working hard on addressing this. Thank you.
All right. In an effort to keep us all from melting, questions?
What's the timeline for this, and what exactly will the office look like?
Well, the office will look like exactly what we see in the White House, right? There will be people working there on gun violence issues, but they will be there to support these community organizations, making sure that they have access to different types of trainings that people need in the community. But there will also be programming, right? We need community programming around gun violence. We need to have these conversations out in our neighborhoods, out in our communities. They will also be responsible for writing grants, right? There are millions and millions of dollars right now available to organizations that can help, they can use that money to help them in gun violence prevention in their neighborhoods and in their communities. So we need someone writing those grants to get those federal dollars. They're not going to just sit there forever, right? And so time is of the essence. We need that money. Buffalo needs that money more than any other community in the country. And so we have to get access to that funding. And so that's just a snippet of what they'll do, but they'll be there to make sure that when someone is involved in a shooting, right? Someone dies or they survive, whatever it may be, that office will be able to be there to help them, get counselors, right? They will be able to connect them with the resources in the neighborhood that they need. That's exactly how the office in the White House operates, and that's exactly how this office will operate. Well, the timeline for me, I put into the resolution December 31st, but it does, obviously, it's council, so we have to, it has to age and all of that. But my hope is that I will have unanimous support from my colleagues and that we'll pass this and we'll get it moving quicker.
What's your response to people who might view this as more money, another office, another branch of government? You already have numerous law enforcement agencies, from federal, county, the state to local.
Yeah.
What difference would this make?
Well, this wouldn't be a law enforcement agency, right? again, I believe it was Pastor Giles who spoke about, gun violence isn't always criminal justice issue, right? We can't just put it on the backs of law enforcement. We have to make it a social issue because it is a social issue, right? It's a health issue. This office is going to perform not with police officers. These are going to be people from the community who know the community, who can operate in the community, who the community trusts, right? You need those in-betweens, just like the peacemakers operate out in our community and they're the go-between between police officers and residents. That's exactly how this office is going to function. And we need more offices like this across the country, right? Offices like this are already established across the country because of what happened on 514. We don't have one, which is ridiculous in itself, right? So this isn't about law enforcement. This office is about making sure that if someone is shot on the street, their mother can get counseling so she's not stressed out and not sleeping in the middle of the night. I know what that feels like, right? So that's what this office is for.
How would it be funded?
This office will be funded from the federal government. There are dollars today, right now, that the city of Buffalo can apply for to fund these things. Not only can we apply for those funding to fund this office, but we can use that money to fund these organizations. So there is money available through the federal government.
What are the next steps to make this happen, to make this a local?
Well, it has to go through the Common Council, and then we're going to work with our corporation council to create the language for the local law, and then hopefully the administration follows through.
Is there anything in particular you need from the administration or the executive branch?
I need them to make it happen. Simple. It's simple.
Staffing look like aside from community leaders on the ground here? Who else would be in the office?
In the office, for me, I think that, a lot of times we like to just hire somebody, right? When we talk about like DEI, right? We like to just throw somebody, DEI person. But for me, I think that we need to look at somebody with a track record, right? This can't just be somebody who needed a job one day. This needs to be someone who understands gun violence, understands research, understands legislation, understands grant writing, right? Is able to work through networks, work with people behind me. So it's going to take a different type of person. It can't just be someone who's looking for a job.
So there will be a search process.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And when will that begin?
Once it's established.
Do you expect this to come to the floor tomorrow? I know it said that in the...
No.
Are you working with the state at all? I know you're working with the White House.
Of course.
Okay.
Yes.
To what degree?
Just for support. Just support, and also, we work with the state, obviously, right? I come from a state office, so they know all about this. I've sent this far and wide, so everyone knows what I'm doing. I've also reached out to national partners who work in the gun violence space, so they are prepared to come and meet with us and talk about best practices. And, I've been on the phone all weekend talking to the Everytowns and Newtown and March for Our Lives and the New Yorkers Against Gun Violence, so they're all ready to come to the table and help us get this office up and running.
And where would the office be located?
Right in this building behind me.
Just one more question.
Yeah.
How is your son and how are you doing? I know the last time you spoke about what happened outside.
Yeah, Zaire is doing well, He's doing really well, actually. He's actually back at work at Tops 2 days a week, part-time, but he's working another full-time job, so he's busy. But he's Zaire. That's the best way I can say it. The kid is resilient. He's just like, his full-time job right now is actually helping organizations in the community figure out how to get access to funding. That's what he's doing with his life right now, which is amazing. And I'm so proud of him. And, physically he's doing well. Of course, he's still in counseling. He knows mom doesn't play about that, but he's doing really well. So thank you for asking.